everybody, and welcome to this stream. I hope that you had an enjoyable work week and that you can see this talk as a nice way of closing your week. A few weeks ago, I thought, hey, wouldn't it be fun to talk a little bit about like the human side behind coding? I've always done coding streams where I show you some code, but I thought it might be fun to do something else. So I thought, yeah, maybe I can share like the story behind Oh Dear, a SaaS that I've made. I know that a lot of you also try to start and grow a hobby project, and maybe it's helpful if you heard my story. And I thought, yeah, it might be fun not to only hear Oh Dear's story, but hear another story as well. So after that, I've shared some things about how I've built Oh Dear. We are going to invite Simon Bennett up on the stream, and we are going to talk about how he started his hobby project. Now, I hope that you can see and hear me well. If not, let me know in the chat. I'm going to assume that everything is working. The sound isn't very loud. Let's try to fix that first. I hope that this is better. I've put it a little bit louder now. So if anybody can let me know if that worked, then we can start. Let's already just start, and let me share my screen. So I've created a few slides for us to watch. I hope that is coming across fine. So I'm going to give you a tour behind the scenes of Oh Dear, and an alternative title could be, yeah, how to start and to grow your hobby project. So yeah, you probably know me because you are on the stream. I'm a developer at Spatie. I'm on Twitter. I also have my blog, freek.dev. Now, I want to say first that I'm not going to try to sell you anything. This is not a sales talk, but I want to share the experience of building a thing like Oh Dear. But in order to talk about it, I need to show it to you. So we'll start with a very small product demo. Then I'll explain why and how we've built Oh Dear. Then we'll do a quick code dive. And of course, yeah, you can ask me any questions. I'll answer them on the stream. Also, when Simon is on later, just throw your questions in the chat and we'll answer them live. So Oh Dear is a website monitoring SaaS. You can view it at ohdear.app, and it can check the uptime of your site. It can also check the performance of your site, so you get a nice graph like what the response time was over time of the request. It can also check SSL certificates. And most of the services can do those things, but what makes Oh Dear a little bit special is that we don't check your only your homepage, but we actually crawl your entire site, and we can notify you when there's a bit of mixed content there, and when there are broken links there. Now, most people, they know what a broken link is. That's just a link that leads to nowhere, where you get a 404. And mixed content, that is if you put a piece of HTTP content on an HTTPS served page. And if you do that, then HTTPS can't work correctly anymore, and your browser will notify you that the page isn't secure. And of course, you don't want that. If you have like mixed content on a web shop and your browser screaming at you, this page isn't secure, good luck getting some sales on that. We've also introduced status pages, so you can easily communicate the status of your service to your clients. I'm going to show you an example of that too. And under the hood, it's a heavily customized Laravel Spark application. I think we started out with Spark version 4, and every time a new version comes in, we upgrade to the latest and greatest. And yeah, if you're following the Laravel ecosystem, then you know that Spark is going to get some big changes, and we'll try to adapt those as well. And this is not a project that I did by my own. My buddy Matthias Geniaar is my buddy in crime for creating and maintaining Oh Dear. Now, a lot of people ask, how did you come by the name Oh Dear? And it's actually quite a nice story. So when we decided to build Oh Dear, or it wasn't decided really at that point, I think Matthias, he reached out to me and said, "Hey Freek, I see that you created some tools. Maybe we can create a SaaS of those tools." And those tools, they were around uptime checking. So we made plans to get a beer in a bar, and we were talking about, how are we going to name such a service if we're going to do this? And then I saw on the wall, I saw a bottle of this beer, Moeder Overste, so with a picture of a nun. And I asked myself, what would she say if her website was offline? And the answer was, "Oh dear." And it was more of a working title, but we just sticked with the name because it has a lot of personality to it, I think. So that's the origin of the name. So Oh Dear, it's launched in 2018, so it's a little bit over 2 years old. We have almost performed 2 billion checks. So a check is to check if a site is online or if there is mixed content. That's count as one check. We've done 2 billion of those. I think we sent out 800,000 notifications now. We have about 1,000 paying customers, and our MRR is around 11,000 euro now, which is quite nice for a side project. Now, let me show you some bits and pieces of the service before I explain it any further. So this is the homepage. It's all really simple. We have a red house color, and on the page we list the most important things. There's a page on the pricing. We also have very extensive docs about everything that the service does, especially around the integrations part. If I head back here, then we also have a blog where we share some of the technical stories behind the service. But the main piece is, of course, when you log in and when you go to your dashboard. And this is what you get when you log in. It's a list of sites. Let me go to and you can see that we have a performance graph here, and that you have like a status of all your sites here. Now, if we click on one of the sites, I'm going to get a specific one here. Then you can turn off each check if you want to. We have also reports per check. So this is like the uptime check. This is the latest response that we got. We have performance graphs here, so you can see that there was like a little performance hiccup here. We can do that also for the entire last year. We have a list of broken links here, and this site currently has 3 broken links. You can see what the broken link is and on which page we found it. You can see a list of things of all pages that we crawled. We can do the same with mixed content, but there was no mixed content found for this site. You get some information around the certificate check, and if a certificate will expire within 14 days, we will already notify you, so you have a little bit of a chance to already fix the problem before it becomes a real problem. We also have something very specific here, certificate transparency. We can send you a notification whenever that your certificate is renewed. It's a sort of a niche feature, but it's actually quite nice if you find such a thing important. And we also have cron job monitoring, but I'm going to take a look at another site for that, at my own site here. Oh my, I got 24 broken links on my own site. I should fix that. If I go to cron job monitoring, then you can see that every cron is okay. This cron job monitoring is still in beta. We still have to make it public. We're making the final adjustments on that. So that's all the checking. We can notify you via diverse channels. We can send mail, we can send something via Slack, via webhook, so you can integrate it in other servers as well. We can send SMSs, Discord, push over HipChat. So yeah, a lot of ways to notify somebody. And for all those checks, you can specify which alerts should be sent. And of course, you can add multiple mails or send Slack messages to multiple rooms if you want that. We also have status pages. So these are dashboards where you can communicate to your audience what the status of your service is. Let me show you an example. This is where you can put in alerts of the statuses. You can choose to automatically display whether your site is online or not on that status page. So let me go to status ohdear.app, and this is our status page. So everything is running. And this morning we unfortunately had a little problem, but we solved it in like 40 minutes. And there are actually quite some pages like this in the wild. I think if you go to Flare Up, it also has this page, no problems. And I think even Laravel has one, laravel.com, I guess status. And there were no projects at Laravel. And even though it is at laravel.com, it is actually hosted with a little bit of magic by our servers. So you can see here the page is really served by Oh Dear. So I don't want it to become too salesy, so I've gone very fast here. There's a lot to say and discover about this, but do so at your own time. Let's go back to the slides. I found that it's quite important that you know what this product does, and I hope that you see that it is quite extensive. Even though for a thing that is simple, like you might think an Uptime Checker, there are lots of things going on. There are lots of checks and a lot of notification options. Now let's talk about why and how we built this service. Let's start with the why. So when Matthias and I started out, we thought that the other tools out there, they did a little bit too much. They did sort of checks that we don't need. We thought that some of them were confusing, some of them were downright ugly, and some were very expensive. And we wanted to create a tool where none of these things would be a pain point. So Oh Dear, it aims to be a beautiful site and easy to use. We don't want to have any feature bloat, so we only want to have like things that we are going to use ourselves. It is built with companies like my own company, Spatie, in mind. So at Spatie, believe it or not, we do client work, and we need to monitor the projects that we deliver for our clients because we host them as well. And so we built this really with our own company in mind. And we want to have like an easy price structure. There are no extra features in some tiers. Everybody just gets everything. There are just tiers based on how many sites you want to monitor. But for the sites that you monitor, there are basically no limits. It's not like you have to pay extra for having like the mixed content check or something. And a tip that I can give you is that you should really build something for yourself, because it makes it more easy to build something, because you know the pain points and you know, um, yeah, what an ideal solution must be. You don't need to hire a consultant or talk to somebody else. You just, or not to anybody businessy else. You should talk to your peers, of course, if they are experiencing the same problems as you have. But you're basically like a domain expert when it comes to like developer tools, if you are a developer yourself. Now, there are also a lot of competitors out there, especially for uptime tracking. I think there are like literally hundreds or even thousands of competitors out there. But I think in case of uptime tracking and related checks, it really doesn't matter that much, because the market is just so big. So even if you have like a small percentage of that, you're good. But of course, the difficult thing is finding an audience and building an audience. So in my case and in Matja's case, we are already sharing a lot of things on our blogs, and we built a lot of open source software. I did that in the Laravel and PHP community. Matjas did that in the DevOps community. And so we already had some eyeballs looking at us, and we know, hey, these are technical people. They are interested in what we do. So we know that they find things like uptime checking important too. So another tip is, focus also on what your audience finds important. Now, how did we build Oh Dear? It was really built like a hobby project. So we had no planning, we really had no budget, we had no roadmap, and of course we had no clients in the beginning. Now, I'm not saying that every project should start out this way. I've built another SaaS with my company Spatie as well, Flare, the Laravel Uptime Checker, and there we did have planning, we did have budget. So that was an entirely different story. But for a hobby project, you have like total freedom in what you are going to do, because your own free time, it costs nothing in money. You can, if you have motivation, you can just do whatever that you want and experiment however you want. And with Spatie, I enjoy working in like project context where things are thought out, and of course that works as well, because Spatie is doing very well too. But for this project, I really enjoyed like the freedom that it gives. Like, you can do basically anything that you want. It's like the feeling that I had when building open source. I have that now, but I'm building a bigger project with that. So I've already said that both Matjas and I already had a lot of things in the open source space, and I specifically already had built like an uptime tracker, like a certificate checker, and it was basically Matjas reaching out to me, hey Freek, you've already built this in open source, let's try and do something together. And we had our first meetings, I think in August, with the beers there, where we saw that beer from Moeder Overste. And we started building, not much after, in September 2017, because we had nothing to lose, so let's just do it. But one of the first things that we did is we started a mailing list, and with that mailing list we could gauge if there was interest in something like this. And so one of the first things that we did was opening like a subscription form on the Oh Dear website. And we just tweeted it out and asked, hey people, are you interested in this? And I think we got a couple of 100 signups in the first few days, and that's when we thought, hey, there's definitely some interest in this. I think that Justin Jackson once said that if you can reach 500 people with a mailing list, yeah, then you're onto something. Then it's really worthwhile to start building stuff out. So we had a first version working late November 2017. So I think the bulk of the first edition of Oh Dear was built in a couple of months. We've built the Uptime Checker, the notification system, the mixed content, and the broken links check. And yeah, we tested with sites belonging to my own company, Spasi. And Matthias, at that time, he was an employee at Combel, which is one of the biggest hosting companies in Europe. And yeah, we tested it out for both our companies to see, does it work actually. And we've also let some people in, and we try to gauge, do they like it. Not only did we try it out on clients, but also we invited some close friends that could give us some good feedback. And I want to encourage you that as well, that if you are trying to build something, don't be shy to ask other peers or your friends for opinions. Don't try to build it all on your own. The opinions of your peers can make it better. So if you already have like a group of friends where you chat a little bit with, just say, hey, I'm trying to build this. What do you think of it? Can I make it better? We got some very good, useful information by there. We launched our beta in February 2018. And I think we didn't have a launch date planned. It was just me and Matthias talking on Slack at the evening. Hey, Matthias, we didn't have any problems for the past few weeks. Don't you think it's stable enough? And I was, are we going to test it some more or not? I'm really a little bit afraid to launch. And I think at the end of the conversation was, you know what? Let's just launch it. Let's just launch it now. So there was really no date or no plan. Again, it was just, it feels stable. Okay, let's send out the mails that it's out there now. It was a little bit rock and roll there. And we got about 10 to 15% conversion from our mailing list in the first couple of days. And yeah, we thought that was quite nice. We were very realistic about it. We were thinking about like if 5% converts, then it's already good. But it was slightly more. But don't ever hope that like 100% or even 50% of your list converts. That just isn't going to happen in my mind. My tip here is, don't be too afraid to launch. If you have like a good beta period and everything works well, then just launch the thing. Now, Matthias and I, how do we work together? Because we have a little bit of different profiles. I'm more of a developer, and Matthias, he started his career as a developer, but he's more kind of an ops guy right now. And yeah, he has like very good, like deep technical knowledge about how to administer services and about SSL knowledge and network protocols so much. So we thought, it might be nice if Matthias just handles all of the hardcore knowledge and doesn't code too much himself. I think, pretty good at coding, so I did most of the coding parts. Matthias does some things as well, but the most bulky parts, or where there needs to be a lot of structure, mostly I work on those things. And Matthias also does customer support, which is very, very important as well. Now, we used Laravel Spark, and it took care of the boring stuff. So all the team things and the billing stuff, it was taken care of. So we could just focus on the core idea of your application. Now, both Matthias and I, we aren't good at design personally, but my own company, Spasi, is very good at it as well. So we outsourced the design to Spatie as well. It is my colleague Sebastian who did the design of the entire site. Now, my big tip here is, personally, I don't think I would ever dare to create a project like Oh Dear totally by my own, or certainly not at that time. Maybe now I could do it, but even then, I don't think I would enjoy it as much if I would do it alone than I would in like a team. I think it's good to have somebody to get feedback from, who also has a stake in what you're doing. And yeah, it's just much more enjoyable to have like that feeling we're doing something together. I'm really a little bit more of a social coder. I don't get too motivated if I do stuff on my own. I also always get a little bit more motivated when working in tandem. Now, for a service like this, marketing is of course important as well, because yeah, even if you have like a very good service that just is better than all the rest, if you don't think a little bit about marketing or do anything marketing, nobody will notice your service. So yeah, we started out with our mailing list. We also do like, how do you say that again in English? We do contests with discount codes once in a while to attract some attention. We also try to not be too markety, so we want to share some things as well, some technical things as well. So while we were developing Oh Dear, we shared code snippets on how the service worked. So if you had like an interesting coding thing that we need to solve, I tweeted out the solution. Or if Matthias found out something interesting about the internal working of certificates, he tweeted it out. So I think that was quite nice to do. We also both did like talks, very much like this one. And on our personal blogs, we also discussed some coding challenges and how we went about it. So my tip here is, don't do like marketing just too markety, but also consider like your audience. Our audience are developers, so they want to know about how we solve kind of issues under the hood. So provide value in your marketing. If you just scream at people like this is our best service, or if you have like traditional ads like banners on other sites, that might work on a scale, but I believe that on a small scale these things don't work as well as like providing content and a good value in your marketing for your audience. So that's something, if you're trying to launch something like this, I can highly recommend that, to provide value in your marketing as well. And of course, we do some cool other things, some joyful things for marketing as well. We don't take ourselves too seriously. So whenever whenever somebody signs up at our site, we send a little postcard, and we get a lot of tweets like Robert's tweet here, who think that it's like quite enjoyable to get a postcard, and it actually is. We stole this idea from another service, which I can't remember the name. So I signed up and I got a postcard, and I thought, hey, that's a very, very nice touch. So think of such things as well, where you have a little bit like the human warmness, and not like, we got your email, we got your payment, and that's it. But do some joyful stuff like this. Here's another thing that we do, and I consider it a little bit of marketing as well. So whenever that whenever a month is over, we send a mail to everybody, even to the trial accounts, I think, where we share the uptime percentage of all the sites. And what we then also do is add links to new articles on our blog. So here again, it's providing value to those mails. So here we can reach out to our audience and even to our subscribers through our mail. So yeah, things like that. Try to do that as well. Now let's talk a little bit about the tools that we use. Which tools are used to host and build Oh Dear. Well, our main web server, which is a very big one, is hosted at Combel. The uptime checks, they are performed by different servers all over the world. Whenever you whenever you monitor a site, you can specify from which locations it should be monitored. And at those locations, we have DigitalOcean and Vultr servers provisioned, and they will do the pinging and they will ping back to the main service. And we have in each location, we have DigitalOcean and Vultr servers. So if there's like if DigitalOcean goes down, then we still have Vultr who can do like the check for us. So we're not dependent on just one platform for this. Of course, we use Flare for error tracking. We use Freshdesk to follow up the mails. Of course, we use GitHub for the hosting the code. And yeah, I don't think there are really big surprises in here. So my tip here is just use the services that you already know and love here, because yeah, you already know them. They're reliable for this kind of project. Now I've already babbled a little bit too much with these slides. I also want to show you some of the code. So let's go to PHP Storm and take a look at some things. And this is the actual code base of Oh Dear. If you know Laravel, then you can immediately see that this is like a Laravel project. We have that app directory here. We have routes. We have actually a lot of routes here. And I want to share two things. I think one thing is on like the whole code structure, and the other thing is about a detail. So let's start with the code structure first. If you open up the app directory here, then you can see that we have a domain folder here. And this is not something standard Laravel. This is actually how we treat big projects at Spatie as well. So instead of dumping everything in the app directory and using the traditional structure, what we did is we created a domain folder, and for each big functionality of our site, we just put everything related to that functionality in there. So the simple one is, for instance, blog, and that's actually a smaller one. And you can see that we have all the things that relate to our blog here. So in this case, it's just a model, and it's just some renderer for a comment mark. And yeah, when we work on the blog, we don't need to see everything that relates to notifications or status pages. If I open up status pages, you can see that it has some models of its own. And where we're working on that feature, we only see these things. We don't need to know all the rest. And I think this is like a nice way to structure a bigger Laravel application, where you just split it up and use like a structure for each functionality. Now, we didn't always do that. If I go to the branch, I think it's called no domains. Git checkout no domains. Yeah, that's it. So this is the code base from a while ago, and you can see that we basically didn't have any domain here. It's just code and all the models in one go. Now you might think, isn't it like really hard to start with like a domain-driven approach in the Laravel application? And the answer is, if you're using something like PHP Storm, well, it really isn't. You might think that Laravel needs to that Laravel requires you to have the classes at specific places, but actually Laravel and PHP, for that matter, it doesn't matter where you put classes. You can put them anywhere you want. So if you want to start out with like a domain-driven structure, then you can just use the refactoring methods of PHP Storm. So in PHP Storm, you can just move a class to wherever you want. And let's say I want to move this one to, I want to start with like a domain-driven approach. So I want to have in domain, maybe blog, and let's do the and then models. Let's do the refactor. PHP Storm is going to look for it. Let's see. It didn't place it right. Did I do something wrong here? Let's just reset the heart here. Let's try that again. Sorry about that. Must have done something wrong here. Or maybe I've hit a new PHP Storm bug. So I wanted to have in app domain blog models. Like that. Yeah, here's a little bit of, that's a strange thing. Normally it should have this one, and hopefully now he's going to move it in the right place. Yeah, now we have domain blog post models. And if we take a look at the changed files, then you can see that PHP Storm just took care of changing that import just everywhere. And of course our class is moved as well. And if you have like a good test suite in your project and you have covered all functionality, then I'm pretty sure that if you run the test suite again, that you'll notice that there aren't any problems, that PHP Storm can actually do this kind of operation quite well. So whenever that your project is becoming a little bit too big, you could opt to go to like that domain structure. Now let me go to the master branch again, so we can see all of our domains here. And let's share a small bit of the code here. Let's go to check. So all the logic of the checks is in this directory. So you can see here that for each check we have a directory. So everything for the cron job, for the cron check is being performed here. And let's go maybe to the uptime check here. And this class, the Uptime Checker, is the actual class that that has like the brain of the check. And yeah, let's just take a look at it. So it should be fairly easy to understand. So this check, it will be performed for a runnable. And a runnable, in most cases, that is a run. That is a little bit how Oh Dear is structured. So a site has specific checks, and when we check something, we create a run. And excuse me, then we can store the result of that run on that run model. So the first thing that we're going to do is just ensuring that it's a valid run. I think we do some check here that this is a run for like a site that has a theme that has a subscription or is in the trial period. We are going to choose from where are we going to do this check. So Oh Dear, actually, if everything goes well, then we are going to check it once. If the primary uptime checker says we are going to, or the site is online, then the check is okay. If it is false, we are going to use a secondary checker to see if it is really down, because we don't want to have like any false positives. I think if an uptime checker sends you a warning like your site is down and it isn't, that's one of the worst things that can happen, because you don't trust your uptime checker anymore. That's why we optimize it a little bit so that no false positives are being sent. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to get a primary uptime checker service, and we are going to use the location that you preferred on your site. And if there is a result, then we are going to save that result. If that result is successful, so if you say the site is up, then we are going to handle the success. So that's basically saying, hey, this check is complete, and then we're not going to do anything. The site is up. I think in handle success, there's also some behavior for if your site was down and it is now up, we are going to send you a notification, hey, your site has been restored again. But let's imagine that that either there was no check result or your site wasn't up. Then we are going to find a secondary server. So we are going to find an alternative for the secondary city and provider. So we are going to check from another city and from another provider. And then we are going to check. And if there is a check result, we are going to save that result. If the site is up, then we are going to assume, hey, there was something wrong with the primary uptime checker, but we verified that your site is back online. If this result, if the site wasn't up, so if at this point the primary and secondary uptime checker, they decided, hey, your site is not up, then we are going to mark it as failed. We are going to raise an event, and this will cause a notification to be sent in most cases. Now there's also like this is really an edge case that can happen if both of the checker services, so both our primary and our secondary, don't send a response. We are just going to delete this run. We're not going to send a notification because we assume that there's something wrong with our infrastructure if our uptime checkers don't respond at all. And if let's imagine that all our uptime checkers are indeed down, and we would conclude that, hey, everybody's website is down, then we are going to send out notifications to all our clients, which would obviously be a bad thing. So if our uptime checkers are all down, we aren't going to send any notifications. Behind the scenes, we will get a notification to see, hey, is there something wrong here? Okay, I think this is a nice code dive into the heart of Oh Dear. Let's switch back to the slides. So if you want to know more about Oh Dear itself, either ask away in the chat and I'll have a look in a minute. Otherwise, just go to the documentation and you can discover more of the functionality that Oh Dear offers there. There's an API. We have an SDK for both PHP and for JavaScript. We do have webhooks, so you can integrate it in your own systems. There's even a Laravel Nova tool. There's also a tool for Statamic Craft CMS. And I should add it to those slides. We also have like a beautiful WordPress plugin that was contributed by one of our users. And I'm not big into the WordPress community, but I think it is one of the most beautiful WordPress plugins out there with beautiful animations. It's mentioned in our documentation as well. Check it out. So what are our future plans? We are going to add a cron check, which you've also already seen here in this demo. And we also want to improve the experience on mobile. When we started out creating Oh Dear, we thought, yeah, most of the times you are going to sit behind your desktop if you want to see results of the check. But our experience learned that that isn't true, and a lot of our customers also use the Oh Dear interface on mobile. And on the iPad, it works just fine, but on small mobile phones, there are some rendering issues which we want to take care of soon. Now, to thank you for watching, I want to offer you a coupon code which allows you to monitor 5 sites for free for an entire month. That's on Hello. Just use the coupon Hello Stream. And yeah, if you just want to try it out, there's a free trial for 10 days. There's no credit card needed, so you can just try it out. I also have some interesting links here that you can check out. We also did an interview at Indie Hackers. Matthias did some research at how some of our clients found us, so that's also interesting to read. On my blog, I have a few interesting articles about how we solved some issues in Oh Dear. Recently, we replaced everything regarding WebSockets and Vue with Livewire, and I share the pros and cons of that. And yeah, there are some good amount of code snippets there as well. And remember that I said that we did some marketing using just tweeting out some code snippets while we were developing. Well, those tweets, they are all bundled in one Twitter moment, which you can find here. So that's everything that I got for Oh Dear for you. I hope you found it interesting. I'll check the chat in a bit if there are any questions for me. We are going to take a small break of just a few minutes because I'm really a little bit thirsty. And in that break, behind the scenes, I will phone up Simon Bennett. And when we come back, then Simon and I will talk about his story, about how he started out and how he built and grew Snapshooter. So see you all in just a couple of minutes. I'm gonna make you a little bigger. So here we are back. I'm going to take care of some issues here. That's it. I think you'll be able to hear me fine, hear Simon fine. So if there's anything wrong, just let me know in the chat. Hi, Simon.
Hi there. Yeah, I think I'll turn off the stream now because it's like a big delay and it's like put me off.
Yeah. You don't do that, because otherwise I have to wait for like 1 minute until you answer. So you just
taking that time.
You just look on Skype. So you're in your home office, I see.
Yeah, this has been the office for years. So before I went full time, I was still working from home. So
Okay. So it's not like, I'm going to the end of the story already. I know that you recently made a jump about for going full time. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But before you also worked from home, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I was a software consultant for an agency in the UK, who kind of in a similar way built sites like yourself do. I'm trying to describe that work.
What was it? Some kind of agency or something? Or
it was more like building bespoke applications. So I think in my time there, I probably did about 3 or 4 different applications, from hotel software to influencer marketplace. So yeah, not small websites, pretty big projects that some of them were multi-year things. So
so you've always been accustomed to work on like bigger type of projects.
Yeah.
And was it always Laravel, or where are your roots there?
When I joined, actually, they were heavily into CodeIgniter, and I was kind of more of a junior when I joined, but I spent quite a lot of time fixing issues with CodeIgniter websites. Mm-hmm. And then when we had our first Greenfield project come in, we sort of jumped on the opportunity to get rid of a lot of old tech, like old rack space dedicated servers, and they were using, is it SVN for version control?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And CodeIgniter. So we sort of brought that in, and no more copying packages into like whatever it was, CodeIgniter. You'd have to like copy them into like the libraries folder.
But SVN, that has been a while. I think if you go into this industry, you might think that Git has always been there, but that's really not the case.
No.
So I think we're in a better place now, though, with Git than SVN.
Yeah, we're definitely tripping over ourselves quite a lot with SVN, so it's nice to. I think obviously GitHub sort of really helped the adoption of Git, but
yeah. So you worked at the company. When did you first thought, hey, I want to do something by myself, or how did that went about?
I mean, I've always tried to build stuff for myself. So even before I joined there, I was trying to build projects. I tried to build rent management software because I was a student and I hated the way that our landlord and agency were managing stuff, and naively thought that I could build a solution for them. That's before I learned about marketing and sales and stuff. And yeah, so that was throughout sort of university, and then I actually even tried to build an Uptime monitor.
Wow!
At the time, back in 2011, but sort of my skills as a developer were pretty lacking back then, and dealing with multiple queue servers and stuff when there wasn't really any. You'd have to build it yourself basically. I can't really think of what the tools were around in 2011 for even dealing with jobs in the sense of a PHP project.
I think in 2011 I haven't even heard of a job. I think I did everything in the web request,
Yeah. I started looking at Gearman, which was some sort of but that was like a learning curve in its own right, which I would recommend people if they're building projects and maybe not to adopt new technology. So yeah, I gave up with that, and so throughout sort of university and first joining, I always wanted to sort of work on my own projects, and I had a few. They all sort of failed and didn't really get to anywhere. And then in 2017, I decided for a problem at work where they were having DigitalOcean droplets being compromised, WordPress installs, very old WordPress versions, that perhaps we could just sort of kind of put a plaster on the whole issue by putting better backups in place. And the simplest way was to look at DigitalOcean backups. And that's where I saw that potentially you could come in and do daily backups with that API instead of doing their weekly backups, which would give us much better protection really against any issues.
Yeah, so for people that don't know DigitalOcean well, they had like a backup functionality there, right? But the default is like weekly backups, I guess.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, so they have a backup offering that's sort of native, as you would call it, and it's for weekly backups, and then they retain the last 4. But they also offered the ability for one to take a snapshot whenever they wanted. Said one too many times. And they also had an API around that snapshotting system. So for us, or I worked out for where I was working, it would be cheaper and much better sort of backup resolution to use the API. So it didn't take very long to build like a cron script basically to do that. And then the week after that, I thought, maybe I could sell this as a solution and slap a sort of a pay page on it. And we're away. Every other project I'd taken months and months and months to build, where Snapshooter was a couple of weeks, really.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so so I discern also from your words that the ideas that you had even before Snapshooter was just like building stuff for your own. So things that you just saw like, this is a problem for me.
Yes.
And where is like because you say like for Snapshooter, I immediately know, hey, there's something in there. But you probably thought that with like the other ones as well that you did.
Yeah, I guess it's a sort of a balancing act really between sort of having a feeling about how good it is and how long it's going to take to build. So with Snapshooter, it's sort of very low cost in terms of if it worked or didn't. You've only spent a month maximum, where some of the other projects I'd spent sort of 6+ months building these things for industries that I don't really know. Like there was no way I was going to walk into a letting agency and try and sell them software. So that was never going to work. So even though I could see that there was like a huge issue with organization and management, that's not to say that they would adopt anything.
So we're at the point that you've built like the cron job, basically with some whistles and bells around it in a couple of weeks. What did you do then? Did you immediately launched it live somewhere or something, or did you test it out in the company that you worked on at the time first, or?
So I tested it out with the company while I was building it because they have a good selection of droplets to test against, and sort of come to the agreement that they could use it for nothing while, if I build this product. And then obviously I started using it, and I sort of reached out to a few people that I knew were using DigitalOcean, just some sort of friends really, and they started using it, and that sort of gave me enough confidence at that point to put billing in place. And as soon as I put billing in place, I went a bit more public, and I just did the worst launch you could probably do, which is just put it on Product Hunt and cross your fingers. Which I wouldn't recommend. I watched your presentation before. Yes, get the mailing list, get the audience, get all those things first. Don't go the opposite way.
Oh, but still, you managed, So
yeah. I guess it sort of falls back again to the whole like how much risk is involved. If you're going to have to spend 8 months building a project, you better make sure that you're going to have customers from when you release. Where if it's a small side project,
Yeah, because when you're saying it like this, I think if I would put myself in your shoes, I would think like, hey, I only put like a couple of weeks in this. I'm just piggybacking on DigitalOcean. What if they just say like, "Yep, we're going to do daily backups. And this guy had a good idea. Let's just do that," you know. But with,
Yeah.
like you said, your time investment isn't that long, so you might do it anyway and just see what happens because there isn't too much
Yeah.
risk involved.
Yeah, I mean, there's risk involved now. It's my whole livelihood. But I don't think they're you know when I talk to engineers there,
Yeah.
I don't think it's on the horizon. But yes, yeah.
We're going to work up until where you are now. So
Yeah.
we're on Product Hunt, and you said like
Yes.
this probably wasn't like the best idea. So I assume that there wasn't too much traction there, or how did that go?
I made the front page, which was good. Maybe
Okay.
just because of, I think Justin Jackson sort of gave it an upvote, and with his influence, that was enough to push it onto the homepage. And the other advantage was that Snapchat that day IPO'd, and I think maybe some people got confused between Snapshooter and Snapchat, and I ended up with some some votes that I shouldn't have had.
Oh wow, that's really lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was really interesting because that was kind of the first that injected a whole bunch of users. I had a free plan at the time as well, I think, and it injected a whole load of users, which brought on like the first set of feedback from users, like what really would they like to see in a product like this. So those first few months really did help shape the product, and those initial users who came in for free or were on very low plans. I think the one plan was $3 a month or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really definitely helped shape the product. So,
weren't you afraid that there are like too many free users coming in, or is it like really no problem because you just I think basically have no cost for those users.
Yeah, you're right. So there wasn't much cost, but also there weren't that many users. So,
Yeah,
well,
okay.
I think we're talking maybe about 20 people. So at that stage, with 3 or 4 paying customers.
Yeah, I think
So.
my opinion about like free tiers is always like just don't do it. But yeah, maybe I say that because yeah, for the types of projects I work on, Oh Dear and also Flare, yeah, there are costs for each users, even free ones, you know. But
Yeah.
I think if in your case, I think the biggest thing that you have is like database and an API call that you need to do, and there aren't many other big
Yeah,
things
so with our
purchase.
newer offerings, there's a little bit more, but yeah, it's sort of very low costs per user, and it's also quite you're restricted to one backup as a free user. So
Yeah.
I have like a gut feeling that it's working for us. If it gets a developer and an agency using us, and then they recommend it to the company 6 months later,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a win. And I have some users who convert. Like I had one who converted after 2.5 years of being a free
Oh
user.
wow.
So like the long game there.
But you won. I
Yeah,
won
yeah,
between quotes, of course.
yeah.
So you've launched your service. You have a few free users there. Um, how do I say so? What how did you interact with those users? Did you mail them and ask them, hey, which features are you missing, or did they tell you features, or how do you decide how to go forward then?
Okay. I think at that time had live chat, and so a lot of users I was talking to during the day when they were sort of setting things up, and yeah, I think primarily emailing people. So emailing the people who were paid. During the early days, there were a few bugs in the UI and stuff. So people would email, and like while that's a negative, you can always sort of spin it and turn it into a positive by getting good feedback and improving the product. Like it's always like an opportunity to get some thoughts from them. So I had quite a few of those first users were really keen to sort of communicate, and I sort of found this with other products as well. That your first users, who are kind of your early adopters, are more keen, and they kind of got a bit of skin in the game as well. They want you to succeed because they need. I mean, if they need the product, they want you to succeed. So
Yeah.
it's a good sign. So, for example, one user had hundreds of droplets, and he really wanted a solution for that. So he was very sort of keen to help, and sort of he wanted to ship the product a certain way, and I was sort of willing to, so if it was in line with what I wanted to do. So
now, before I answer the next question, I want to say something from the chat here. I have Hamburgo in the chat here. Yo, that was me. I've used Snapshooter for 2 years before getting it. Amazing service. So it's like the biggest fan of your service, I think.
Oh dear, I'm not in the chat.
I'll keep an eye on it. I'll keep an eye on it. Yeah. So for people watching, if you have any questions for Simon, just let me know, and I'll just ask Simon. What kind of features were you working on at that time? Because that's something that I always find like difficult for Oh Dear. I've said like in the beginning of my presentation that I really wanted to have like a simple solution, and I think like every feature needs to be worthy enough,
Yes.
And I think personally that's like a difficult thing to scope things, because as a developer we have like a natural tendency to just build and build and build, but at what point do you stop, and what things are worthy for you, what things were worthy for you at that time to add to the service?
It's a good question. I think one thing that helped was I was kind of very limited with time. And you could sort of put a couple of hours in sort of every other day, so maybe like an hour a night on it. So you have to be kind of very selective by the time you've done support what you're going to work on. So it was primarily focusing on improving backups to suit businesses' needs. So if it sort of ticked those boxes, I would work on it. So for example, when I first started, you could only say backup a server every day and keep the last 10 backups or whatever you wanted. And it was only after like 4 months and a customer said, "Oh, I'd like to be able to set how many weekly backups I keep." And I'm like, well, that's an absolutely fantastic suggestion that I did think of. And that's when sort of the more complicated retention system came in, which was more management from my side. So I think I kind of kept the features based in feedback. So either based on the issue customers were having with their backups and trying to come up with a good solution for it. Because you have to be very careful with early customers, because sometimes their feedback when they ask for something isn't really why or what they want.
Indeed.
You need to really sort of dive in like a doctor would to work out what the actual cause is, not what the sort of symptom is.
Indeed. I think like pleasing like users is something you should be a little bit careful of. I think with Oh Dear, if somebody asks something, we mostly don't do it right away unless we find the idea very, very good and we want to use it ourselves. Otherwise, in our case, it goes onto a list and we just count how many people are asking for this. And if enough people ask, then we'll consider adding it. That's like the way that we do it. And not too much features make it that way, actually, because we try to keep it simple there.
Yes, well, I mean, every time you add something, it's just, you're making it exponentially more complicated to manage and to remember and deal with.
Indeed, because you need to stay motivated to stay working on it. Because you're saying like you have like 1 hour in the evening that you can work on it. There's a lot of other things that you can do. I think the most tempting thing that you can do as a developer is just start another project. But I think if you want to grow something, you need to be focused and motivated.
Well, exactly,
How did you stay motivated during that time?
I mean, it's difficult. At that time, it was sort of very low income, but yeah, you're just quickly back to your point about sort of staying motivated. There's a lot of once you've built your initial product, there's a lot of marketing effort that needs to be applied. So adding features, that you sort of have to start considering, is this like a marketable feature as well? Like, would this bring more customers in? Because if it doesn't, it's not ticking that box, which at the moment is, in your first few months is the biggest issue. It was making very little money for the first 3 or 4 months. To the point at like month 6, I didn't really know whether it was really a fit. To be honest, I hadn't broken $100 a month by month 5, I think. So.
And how did that change? Because you say you did more efforts for marketing. What did you do then for marketing?
I spent a lot of time in communities trying to subtly plug my solution. I think that's basically what I did in the beginning, was making sure that sort of awareness of the fact there's a solution. I always sort of think that backups are difficult to sell, and that maybe it's the same with uptime monitoring, that people don't really know they have an issue with needing to do it until something goes wrong. So if you lose your server, like you have that blog post about digitalization, your server, like, you maybe didn't even consider backups being a priority before that happened, but definitely after that event you're considering. So I feel like maybe it's the same with uptime. Like, who cares until you actually have an outage that affects you? So yeah, trying to just market towards that was sort of my first phase and challenge.
Yeah, so you really went to search for your audience yourself, and was it like on fora where like people are, or mostly on Twitter, or because you say communities? What kind of communities are that then?
The DigitalOcean has a community where people can ask questions and answers, and I mean, it was sort of a part of the validation was there were a few forum threads and ideas of people asking for what Snapshooter offered. So they were the first places I went in and plugged that, we've come up with a solution to said problem.
Yeah. So at that point, you have like $100 a month is coming in, which is, I think, for a hobby project, that's already a big party, I think, because
yes,
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how you felt that, but for me, when like the first $100 came in, it was like, whoa, this is like free money. I can spend this on something that I want, and just don't feel bad about it. I don't need to save it because it's extra money,
Yeah. That's kind of what happened. It was like, I got £100 a month or whatever to spend on this, and then it's like, oh well, actually that now covers the half the childcare, or that covers the food bill or something, and it was just like, as it works its way up towards
I think I think in the beginning of when you have a side project where you make a little bit of money, you don't have to act responsible with that money, but as it grows, you have to become a little bit more responsible with that, because you can do smart things with that money as well.
I mean, it's difficult because you're like, when you're making a small amount, it's kind of like, should I pivot into a new product? Is because you can't accurately predict where it will be in a year's time. So if it's going to be at the same price in a year's time, it may be not worth pursuing with more effort at least, and maybe your time would be spent better elsewhere. So it's kind of a difficult thing to judge. I see a lot of people in the startup community talk about, if you don't get to a certain number by 2 years, you should really ditch the project. So I guess it depends on your mindset, really, of whether this is something you're trying to pursue as sort of an income replacement, or whether you're happy with it being a side project. And at that point, I was sort of very happy with it being a side project. Yeah.
But at a certain point, that changed, right? Because it kept on growing. And
yes, luckily.
How did that phase come about? So you have like €100 or dollars a month coming in, And after that, it just kept growing. And I guess in your mind, it also became more important. What kind of things did change for you then? Did you go about it in a different way, or?
I definitely freed up more time to work on the project, and I could see that there were just random people that I'd never known or heard of signing up and using it, and it just I don't know, sort of gaining momentum. So I don't know. It's difficult to think about that sort of phase. I remember I gave a talk at LaraCon, and I can't remember which year it was. A couple of years ago, and it was like
in the tent there,
in the tent. Yeah. In that unconference, and at that point, it was like it was mortgage income, and I guess that would So Snapshooter started to gain income to the point of paying a UK mortgage. We moved house, and I could kind of stretch our finances based on the fact that I had two sources of income, even though Snapshooter was not a full-time job. So it meant we could get a better house and a better location for schools and stuff because of that. So it sort of also became a risk that it had to work, because if it stopped working, I banked basically on my salary is overstretching this where we are. So we're sort of very lucky and privileged in that sense to be able to have those two sources, or it was like a three source income household. So at that point, it sort of became not more stressful, but definitely bigger responsibility to continue the sort of I guess it didn't need to continue, but it definitely needed to carry on. So
yeah. I think that's a very courageous thing to do. If I go back to Oh Dear for a bit, in my mind it's quite successful for a hobby project. Yes. But even now I don't want to depend on it. I always assume it could be gone next month. Probably it won't be gone, but I don't want to depend on it financially or just do something else. And I want to keep my main job, because that's also my own company. So that's also living the dream. I guess for you, there was something in your mind where you thought about, hey, because you mentioned it already a couple of times, a goal could be to just not have a job anywhere else anymore, but just to do my own thing. And I guess at that phase, you're really considering doing that.
I mean, it was not on the horizon, but it was definitely sort of in the sort of longer term thinking. And in terms of, if you think about what you said about being careful with the money, what it basically did was increase the household expenditure to meet both jobs, meaning that the goalpost of leaving a full-time job was just creeping forwards. So if that is your goal, and you want to do it in the most risk-averse way possible, which is to build a side project while still being in work, I'd make sure that your sort of household income, your household expenditure doesn't creep up.
Yeah, indeed.
Otherwise you'll never replace the job. So.
Yeah, indeed. But I think fairly recently you replaced your job, right? Can you say a little bit how you reached that decision? Because that's a very important decision. At that point, you must really believe this is not a hobby project anymore. This is a real thing.
Yeah, I guess before that, so maybe in 2019, I sort of, it really was a second job, and there I was working two jobs every day, and at weekends. And I definitely took it more seriously, and we had a sort of a good year for growth as well. And I sort of entered 2020 with a plan to get to full time by the end of the year. I've just happened to accelerate that by quite a few months. So it was a plan. I sort of based roughly on the trajectory that we would be able to afford it with everything that was going on at home as well. And then the sort of COVID hit, and So I have two children. The eldest was 3 at the time. She was born sort of 6 months before I built Snapshooter. Yeah, and then the youngest was born in October. So with two children at home because they couldn't go to childcare, one of them being very young, it became incredibly hard at home to do two jobs. Yeah. So to do like an office job, I already had to sort of cut office hours because I needed to help the wife with a baby who doesn't sleep. You can't just dump the children at 9 and come back at 5:30. And then also in the evening, continue working on this other project. At that point was earning more than my job.
Yeah.
So obviously, as I said before, the goalpost had moved. So it wasn't just replacing the salary, it was having to replace the salary and a little bit. But with COVID and childcare being like free because it wasn't happening, I sort of jumped earlier than I would have done. And that definitely helped at home. That sort of freed up 40 hours a week instantly to help around the house. And I went down to doing sort of 6-hour days on Snapshooter without, and I primarily did them in the evening when the kids were asleep. So it definitely, at that point, me and my wife had a sort of very serious discussion about sort of finances, and we had to cut things back a bit. But I think it definitely helped at home where the situation was pretty awful.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of glad for it because it pushed me into going full time earlier than I wanted to. So.
Yeah, but it's really cool to see it like work out,
Yeah. I've had some of the best months since going full time. So, as in like financially and also like household, and it was towards the end it was getting pretty stressful doing a backup business, which is I heard you say this in your stream about Oh Dear not being like super mission critical, where some of the backups is pretty. It can be a little. Especially with some of the newer offerings we have. So, and then also I was kind of.
Oh sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And also the sort of the day job where I was basically a CTO it was just getting a bit much.
Did you ever run into like serious problems with like that responsibility? Because indeed having backups is like. Yeah, they need to be there.
I have a little story about this. Because we always notify people when backups fail. I sort of sleep pretty easy. We haven't in that terms. If we have an issue with a provider, we let customers know, so they're sort of free. But sort of the most stressful thing that's happened in the whole time was in October last year, and so we request DigitalOcean to do a snapshot for you. That's sort of the bread and butter of Snapshooter. We offer tons of other stuff now, but so we request to back up your droplet. We then store the information about that, the metadata about that backup, and then based on how many backups you have and what your policies are, we'll go through and prune them. Every time we do a backup, we'll prune them, and we were telling DigitalOcean to delete these backups, and they were returning API codes that were saying that successfully happens. Mm-hmm. So, everything's...
You're okay, yeah.
Then I get a customer asked to close and cancel. And he's moving over to Google Cloud. I ask why. His DigitalOcean bill's really high. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So I delete... He says, can you delete all the snapshots we have in our account? So I delete everything we have on record that's still active. And then he messages me saying, you haven't deleted these backups. Could you delete these ones? And I go, we already deleted these ones. And I got logs of them. And it turns out that they hadn't actually been deleting these backups that we'd requested. And this particular client was owed quite a considerable amount of money in terms of, we'd requested stuff to be deleted and it wasn't. So that was...
And doesn't that build up? Because I guess you don't have...
They had old backups. So, yeah, that was... And then he basically said that he's seeking to recover that money, which was considerable. And then I found other customers were in a similar situation. The power users, the people with hundreds of droplets and taking very frequent backups. So, yeah, that was a very stressful time. Luckily, after sort of a week of stressing out about it, DigitalOcean made good on their mistake and refunded all of the customers affected for all
Did
the
you
backups.
did you have to talk to DigitalOcean yourself, or did they see that like, hey, yeah, we'll...
I yeah, I had to talk to them directly. Luckily, I sort of formed a bit of a relationship with them, so I managed to get on the phone with the head of storage, and then throughout a week of emailing senior management about this, they very gracefully, I'm glad, resolved this. But that was like a week on the phone with lawyers and insurance companies and all sorts to get this
Oh man.
sorted. But luckily, I have an audit trail of every single DigitalOcean request we've ever sent.
Ah, that's good.
Back to the day we started, and we now have like a really intense routine of checking people's accounts to make
Yeah.
sure there aren't these orphan backups. But yeah, that week I thought, why the hell am I doing this?
Yeah. Yeah, if an API says I've done the work that you requested and they didn't do it, yeah, that's not good. Obviously, I
No.
you kind of depend on that.
Yeah, so we now depend less on that. We now, it's weird. Yeah, it's like called. We have a cron job or whatever, a job that runs through now called the double deleter.
Oh wow, that's a cool name.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe
yeah. We
there's
have
like
the
maybe there's like a SaaS service in there as well to just make sure that APIs do their job. The double API.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, luckily, since then, I haven't had a single issue. Like we put a whole sort of magnitude of checks in place, and DigitalOcean also made some pretty severe, changes on that API. And it's got a kind of a rewarding feeling over the last 3 years that we've made some sort of together with DigitalOcean, we've made some sort of significant improvements on the storage API together, because we take a serious amount of backups for them now. I think we're up to 96 petabytes of backups
Oh,
taken since the start.
that's
Yeah, and it's
that's a
about
lot.
I think it's over a petabyte of active snapshots, so backups we've taken that haven't been deleted yet. So it's quite a considerable sum of money moving around, and
You already mentioned a couple of times that you have like a good relationship with DigitalOcean, and
Mhm,
I think you all in the beginning of our conversation you also mentioned that, yeah, some engineers and they don't have plans to do a
mhm.
service that like what you're building. I know
Yeah.
that you recently also had like a meeting or wanted to go to a meeting with some of the DigitalOcean
Mhm,
higher management.
mhm.
Can you share what those conversations were about?
I don't know what I can actually share. So
Well, if not, just
let
don't
me
do
just
it.
think. So I was meant to go to New York. They meant to fly me to New York, but obviously this year that was never going to happen. So I ended up on a phone call with Yancey, who's the CEO at the moment.
Hmm.
Um, I think he came in last year. Just to sort of learn a bit more about what they're doing. So luckily things seem to align with us, which is great. And he sort of explained the vision of the product, which is, it's sort of continuing along the same path of being a very simple developer tool for servers. So there's some really interesting stuff coming out from them soon, which I
Okay.
pretty much signed an NTA not to talk about. So
Okay. Don't
we're,
do
we're
it.
in we're
You,
in some of the beta programs or the alpha programs, and it's sort of very interesting stuff. But you have to
yeah.
wait and see.
Yeah, I think it's cool that you're now seen by them as like you're part of our ecosystem now.
Yeah,
I that
it is
must.
difficult. You gotta think they are a huge organization. Like
Hmm.
we're very small, so sometimes it's a little slow, and you got to deal with the
Yeah.
gears turning in a huge organization. But it's good to see that, especially sort of in the last 8 months, I've formed a really good relationship with someone high up in management who I talk with regularly, and obviously we're I think we're mutually beneficial to each other. So
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah.
So one other change that you went through these past couple of months as like a by thing of you going by yourself is that yeah, I'm assuming I think correctly that you work on Snapshooter by yourself. I've said in my presentation that I'm a sort of like a kind of a social coder. I really want to have like feedback and work with people together. When COVID hit, I worked from home for a couple of months. I together with my team at Spatie, of course, but yeah, I didn't see them quite regularly, and I kind of missed like a feeling of operating like in a team like that. How is that for you?
I guess it's difficult. I mean, where I was before, it was always remote, so it was always this kind of communication where we'd meet up once or twice a year. But it has been a bit difficult being on my own. I try and get involved with as many sort of interactions like this and other startup related sort of communities. I'm sort of more interested in that than the actual coding. So I try and join sort of like weekly roundtables and stuff, just to have people to throw ideas off. I kind of feel like Snapshooter is a sort of stage where the code is probably the least important thing. It's more about business operations and plans and marketing and stuff. So I try and get involved there. But yeah, it is a little difficult. So next month I have someone coming on part-time as a developer. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting a bit more excited about the code base again.
I think, as you mentioned, the businessy part is more important. You do a little bit less coding. I think what the developers tend to do sometimes is also just do something else. I start like another project. Do you have that? Like that you have like another thing that you want to grow?
I keep having them, but then I'm getting better at sort of stubbing them out quicker. So I can actually see in sort of our growth graph, I've sort of focused on a different product in the early part of last year, and you can see that sort of Snapshooter struggled for it, and then I sold that and stopped working on it. And I keep having these side project ideas, and I just kind of think if you focus, I keep needing to remind myself to focus. That's maybe the better plan if you think that sort of, well, as I do, that Snapshooter is sort of the path to success, if you say. I should keep focusing on that. I do have a side project coming out soon, which is very much related to Snapshooter, which will be like a free tool / service. So that was kind of where I got to put a little bit of like creative programming energy without being something completely new. And, because it takes a surprising amount of focus to work on one thing well, and then as soon as you sort of split that, you're getting diminishing returns on everything. So I think it definitely pays to focus on one thing. I don't know how you do it, because obviously you've got the full-time job where I know you've got the error tracking stuff there, and then I don't know how you manage all those packages and also a SaaS product where I think I'm just ideally a one problem at a time person. I got side projects within Snapshooter or projects and features that are distractions. So,
well, for me, it's also a little bit the same. I can see that from the outside. It seems like that I'm doing a lot of things at once, but actually I have like one hobby project where I work on. And for those packages, I mostly also have like one that I'm working, because I get very unhappy when I have to divide attention. I think that's a little bit also a trait that much programmers have. They want to focus on things. And of course, in your case, when your hobby project becomes like your main job, then you can really do that focus.
Yeah. So that's been nice with going full time. There's been able to brush up some of the details. Like, I guess I've been a bit scrappy in some areas to start with. So like billing areas have been a bit scrappy, and sort of other areas, like you can manage quite a lot from a database at GUI. So when people ask for stuff, it's pretty. So actually getting a lot of that stuff. I didn't have an admin panel at all for Snapshooter until I went full time. So, but now with like increased support requests or whatever, it's sort of paid off. But it's just don't know what my point really is. But
do you try to keep like the code base up to date with like Laravel versions? Is Laravel even being used? I don't
It
know
is
that.
Laravel, yeah. It seems, and all the people who built backup products after me also happen to use Laravel. It seems like that. Yes, so it's Laravel, and I think we're actually up to date. So
Ah, yeah.
I put the last security patch in about the cookie stuff, I think, a couple
Yeah.
of weeks ago. Yeah, so that must have been like the last update. Um, I'm trying to think what. So it wasn't very up to date at the end of 2019, but I had someone take heavy inspiration from us and build a product that does identical. And it sort of injected a whole lot of energy into sort of working on Snapshooter. So got everything up to date, got all the UI and the landing site all up to date and stuff. So it wasn't well kept until that date.
Yeah.
It has been ever since. So yeah, we're up to
Yeah.
date. I saw someone in the chat asking about jobs. How do we use jobs? Obviously, is that the wrong
Yeah.
thing? Jobs, yeah.
Yeah. I think it must be like a little bit scary when like suddenly a competitor comes on. But I personally also think, and you touched upon that as well, that like the technical side, of course, it's important because it needs to work. But like the social and the businessy side is also very important, and people can't just copy that. I think, even if you
No.
have effort level, if like 100% copy of your project your product, it's not the same because you're not in it and it doesn't have
No.
your connections and your reputation.
It's funny you say. Funny you say that. Some of it was 100% copied.
Yeah, of course, of course that isn't good, but
No,
I
no, but yeah, yeah, there's a lot of. I guess if you imagine some of the biggest companies out there, some of their code bases must be like the worst things you've ever had to
yeah
try and manage, and just ugly, and but
yeah
it generates income. Like how much of the world's revenue goes through something like the dirtiest code you've ever seen?
yeah.
So
I can imagine. It's a little bit my personal thought that the bigger the company, the worse the API, something like
yeah,
that, and the worse what's behind that probably. But
yeah.
yeah. Okay, man. Yeah, we've already been talking for quite a while. Is there anything else that you'd like to share at this point, or want to plug at this point that we didn't touch upon? Just feel free. That's my thank you of coming on
Oh,
the
okay.
stream.
Oh, yeah, it's been good. I don't think I've ever had such a discussion in terms of the whole lifespan of the company. So it's been very interesting. I guess go and check out Snapshooter if you use AWS, DigitalOcean, Hertzner. I don't know how you pronounce it. Hertzner.
The
We do.
Germans.
Yeah, the German people. We do native backups for them. So we'll do the simple snapshots, which are just the world's easiest thing to back up your server. Obviously, if you're on DigitalOcean, it's just the simplest way to get regular backups. We do daily to hourly. This year, we added the support for doing MySQL backups to remote S3. So any S3 provider we support. So if you're running a Laravel application and you want to back up your database somewhere else, that's really useful. We also support Postgres in the same way. And we also added file backup support. So if you want to go onto a server and pull all of, for example, WordPress assets off to S3, we also support that. So go and check those things out. There's lots of innovation that we're doing in that space as well.
Cool.
So
Yeah, it seems like you're really having a fun time with this all, Simon.
yeah,
It really shows. It makes me happy to just see it.
yeah. I mean, we don't have a discount code, but if you're a new customer, just hit up support and I'll get you a % discount or something. You have to eat us.
And certainly the ones that are on the service for free for more than 2 years, give them a discount too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, our prices start at $9 now, so maybe you don't. It's not that hard, but
Okay, man. Thank you for your time. And yeah, I really hope that you can make it even more successful than it is now. And I'm also looking forward to the things you're building with like the secret digital ocean stuff.
Oh yeah, that should be good. I see a couple of people raise questions in chat, but if you want to just send me a tweet or something, I'll I'll address the one about backup prices and stuff.
Yeah, let's just jump in chat and just do the text answers, because I think my children can come home in like any minute now.
Yeah.
So we'll have a little bit too much noise to continue doing this like online. But let's go in the chat and just answer any questions just there. But thanks again, Simon. And see you around, man. See you later.
Thanks.
Thanks all for watching, and see you until the next stream. Bye-bye.